The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
Today's world news, what it means, where it's taking us.
I bring you the one and only possible message of world peace.
This is a message of hope, tremendous hope. And he said unto me, you must prophesy again.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
A whopping 52% approve of Trump's second term. He's even performing well with key groups he's struggled with at various points. Hispanics, women, and even the burbs are liking what they see. The Democrats, on the other hand, are at the most unpopular they've been in decades. They don't have a Trump, but they do have a raging case of Trump derangement syndrome. And boy, has it got him saying some really weird stuff.
You could pee on my leg, but don't tell me it's rain. And Trump is raining on America.
We are in the middle of a ketamine-fueled, middle-of-the-night, autocratic power grab.
Are voters having voters' remorse already?
I think so, and it's going to keep building given what he's doing. But chaos is up, corruption is up, and costs are up.
What if Donald Trump cares more about running a Ponzi scheme than he does running the country? Because that's what this is shaping up to be. It's just like Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme. It's the same thing. Instead of dollars, it's votes, right? Every time, and Bernie Madoff and other Ponzi schemes proved us exactly what this is. You got to have a leader that has no moral fiber, and you got to have street peddlers to push it. And that's what's happening here. There's nothing that's actually getting done. Donald Trump doesn't care about solving problems. He just cares about continuing.
Well, I don't know.
We're talking about the death of a constitutional republic. That's what happened in Germany in 1933, 1934. And we're seeing today that you've got an administration in Washington that's ignoring court orders, literally ignoring when a judge says you can't do this, disobeying the Constitution, announcing that we're going to do away with birthright citizenship. That's been established. Well, it's in the Constitution, for goodness sakes. I know what happened day by day almost that led to the Holocaust. And I'm not suggesting that's exactly where we're going, but I know what happened in the early 30s with the death of the German democracy, and that could happen in the United States.
And so what would happen if the U.S. Marshal Service, under the command of the Justice Department at the direction of the president, refused to carry out a court order of contempt? What would then be the state of our democracy?
You know, when you and I were younger, and we were kids, Nikita Khrushchev, who was the head of Russia at the time, the USSR, he said, we will destroy you from within. And here we are, like 50 years later, or whatever it is, and that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing.
Well, trying to do.
That's what they're trying to do.
That's what they're trying to do.
Or perhaps there is a reason why, to your point, Joy, that he is so enthralled with Russia, geopolitics in the way that a president should, but we kind of knew that before,
what if
right?
Putin? Maybe he owes something to Putin.
Look, Trump's defenders say everything he says is a negotiating strategy, including when he says A and the next day says not A. It's all just a negotiating strategy. I think it's an indication his mind is full of mush.
To me, I start to wonder, I'm not big into conspiracies because I've seen government as a leaky sieve. Things just don't stay secret. But now I'm starting to wonder, what does Putin have on Trump?
There you go. The ratings have plummeted. The shows are being canceled. And yet Trump derangement syndrome, it's as strong as it's ever been. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Trump's ratings are up. But you see the sickness on display, the propaganda, the TDS, it's still there, alive and strong. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We appreciate you joining us on today's show. My last show for a few days as I head off to the college campout this afternoon. So we'll have a couple of subs to finish out the week, and then hopefully I'll be back in action on Monday morning. You can get to the live video stream of this program at trumpetdaily.com or at the Rumble channel. Just go to rumble.com/Trumpet Daily. Yesterday I told you about Joy Reid's show being canceled, and then Rachel Maddow rising in defense of her friend Joy Reid, accusing the higher-ups at MSNBC of racism. That's right. That's right. This is from just today, or maybe it was last night. News comes as leading network star criticizes management. It says here, MSNBC has told the majority of the employees who produce Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid's primetime evening shows that they are being let go as part of the network's programming overhaul with an option to apply for new roles. So Rachel Maddow's crew, her staff, they get canned as well. Isn't this amazing, the turnaround here? I mean, they're canceling these shows, and evidently the higher-ups at MSNBC, they didn't take too kindly to Maddow's comments suggesting they were racist for eliminating a show that had 0 ratings. Nobody watched. And she gets up, accuses the bosses of racism, and now she's lost her crew. It's pretty amazing the way that God has gone about silencing the dear leader and his regime. As you heard there in the cold open, I mean, they've never been this unpopular. And they can get up and lie all that they want. They've never been this unpopular, and Donald Trump has never been this popular. Think about all the attacks on all things Trump for 10 years. Only God could have orchestrated all of this. Only God could have brought all this about. Listen to, this is from CNN, I believe, clip 6.
Can we just address this dictator business? I'm going to quote from some statistics put together. So our old friend Chris Cillizza, who calculated that in the first month of the Trump administration, the president took 1,009 questions. Hardly dictatorial behavior. Same stat for Joe Biden, 141. And I would remind you all that in 2023, the Biden administration revoked the hard passes of 442 journalists. And at the time, the White House Correspondents Association took, quote, a non-committal stance. So if you're worried about transparency, Trump is being far more transparent than any recent administration.
1,000 questions. What was that in the first month? I can't believe that Joe Biden took 140. I thought he disappeared straight away. I thought they tucked him into the basement right away. That surely must have tailed off as he went through the 4 years and became less and less accessible. Here is the most, you could argue, the most accessible president in history. Donald Trump answering questions from the press pool, whether he's on Air Force One, whether he's in the White House, whether he's in transit somewhere. He's always available. He's always accessible. And as I say, his ratings are up. And then to see the hypocrisy, to see these talking heads screaming over what Trump is doing when, in many cases, the dear leader did the same thing, took the same kind of action, used the same kind of authority. Listen to clip 3.
I do think they're raising valid concerns, though. I mean, Joanne Fabrics laying off people in 900 stores this week in the private sector. When Barack Obama was president, he laid off 40,000 active duty combat soldiers, and no one in the media did a profile of any of them. But the media wants to highlight federal employees who are losing their jobs. They're not more dispensable than people in the private sector, but they're not less dispensable either. And I think we should treat them all the same way. But also, I would again just point out, where are the profiles of the people in the 900 Joanne's fabric stores that lost their jobs today? If we're going to do it to federal employees, do it to the private sector.
Yeah. That's right. If you're fired in the private sector, nobody cares. Happens all the time. Now it's happening to government employees. And in truth, it's happened with the Clinton administration, as you noted there, or as he noted. It's happened with Obama. Biden canceled people for not getting the jab. And now Trump does it. And suddenly it's a dictatorship. Suddenly he's Adolf Hitler again. It's really unbelievable. The firings at CIA, I mentioned that story yesterday. They're going to have the biggest layoffs in their history. Listen to what Jesse Waters said about that. Clip 1.
There's going to be a lot of house cleaning because now we're hearing CIA agents don't like getting Doge, so they're going to sell state secrets to our enemies. What are we going to do here?
I am curious about how they think this is a good tactic to keep their job. They're exposing themselves essentially by making this indirect threat, using their propaganda arm through CNN that they've used over and over and over again to reveal their hand, that their loyalty is not at all to America. It is not to the American people or the Constitution. It is to themselves.
Selling state secrets to get back at Trump. They're traitors. I think Jesse called them Benedict Arnolds. How does this happen? How did we get to this point where the CIA, in response to President Trump trimming the fat, says, hey, we may give away information to foreign adversaries if you carry out these acts? I mean, the deep state is real. The deep state, there you saw Tulsi Gabbard as well. She's over the intel community. It's quite the shakeup. It's been just barely a month in. Listen to clip 2.
I got to tell you, one of the byproducts of what I just saw literally today is because of this immediate action of transparency and accountability, I have people within the intelligence community reaching out to me personally and directly saying, hey, you need to know about this. You need to look over here. People are stepping forward because they are all on board with the mission to clean house and refocus on our core mission of serving the American people.
So the screaming will continue, and so will the house cleaning. So will the house cleaning. This is from the Washington Times. New leadership at the FBI is starting an investigation into the origins of the agency's plan a decade ago to infiltrate the campaign of then-candidate Donald Trump using 2 female undercover honeypot agents. This was carried out at the direction of Jim Comey. James Comey, that's right. The off-the-books investigation launched in 2015 by former FBI Director James Comey was revealed by an agency whistleblower in a protected disclosure to the House Judiciary Committee. It says, in the intelligence community, a honeypot commonly refers to an undercover operative, usually a woman, who feigns sexual or romantic interest to obtain information from a target. I mean, where's the real authoritarian dictatorship? This came as a result of the dear leader, Barack Obama, weaponizing these agencies. And nobody stood up to the dear leader. It says here, according to the whistleblower, 2 female FBI undercover employees infiltrated Mr. Trump's 2016 campaign at high levels and were directed to act as honeypots while traveling with Mr. Trump and his campaign staff. I mean, given all that they were doing, it's like Trump has said before, I've got to be the cleanest political, operative in history. They had spying going on. They had the honeypots trying to entrap. They entrapped Mike Flynn. How could they not get anything more than, well, he overvalued his property. Let's put him in prison for that. He said his property was worth this when it really wasn't worth that much at all. He was deceitful. I mean, these are the kinds of things they created out of nothing to try to put him in prison. And had he not won the election in November, he'd be sitting in prison right now. He survived 2 assassination attempts. Only God could orchestrate this turnaround. And we talk about, in the March issue of the Trumpet magazine, we talk about God silencing Barack Obama. It's really amazing to see this. It says, additionally, the disclosure says the secret investigation may have indicated institutional bias. Oh, really? This may have been brought on by political bias? The FBI? It says, but the FBI press office told the outlet that the photograph was an FBI informant. In fact, it was a photograph of the FBI undercover employee. Well, there you go. Jim Comey now being exposed. It's a new administration, that's for sure. You've got Pam Bondi over the DOJ, Kash Patel, and his assistant Dan Bongino, of all people. It's pretty amazing. This broke just this morning. Ukraine agrees to minerals deal with the United States. So all of the pressure put on by Jeroboam, put on by Donald Trump, and it shows you how much leverage the United States still has. Now we know that's going to come to an end. But still, by the way, we've got several articles at the Trumpet website, Making Germany Great Again. I think that was our recent program. But this one here about the Ukraine war. After 3 years, is Russia's war on Ukraine finally coming to an end? And then there was another one last night about just how the Russians are rejoicing over some of the things Donald Trump has been saying, going after Zelensky, being disinclined to go after Putin, to call him a dictator, putting the blame for the war on Ukraine instead of on Russia. I mean, some pretty bizarre statements for sure. But now in the end, you look at what Zelensky is doing, evidently. He's coming to the negotiating table. Trump was applying quite a lot of pressure. It says Kiev hopes the agreement on jointly exploring resources will improve relations with Trump and his administration. Kiev has agreed to terms with Washington on a minerals deal that Ukrainian officials hope will improve relations with Trump. Ukrainian officials said Kiev is now ready to sign the agreement on jointly developing its mineral resources, including oil and gas, after the U.S. dropped demands for a right to $500 billion in potential revenue for exploiting the resources. So it was a negotiation, a compromise. There's no, so far as I can tell, there's no security guarantee for Ukraine. And Trump maybe didn't get as much money as he would have liked, or a guarantee for it anyway. But both sides reach an agreement. It's pretty amazing to watch. These people that are so quick to criticize Donald Trump. He has plenty of misstatements. They all do. But he is exercising some authority. And he's accessible as no president before him. He's so much more accessible than the dear leader ever was. Forget about the fake president. They're just pummeling him with question after question. And he's making deals. I mean, this is what he prides himself in. The deal maker, the art of the deal. It says here the mandate for the fund to invest in Ukraine is a further change Kiev had sought. The document states the U.S. will back Ukraine's economic development into the future. Ukrainian officials added that the deal was just a framework agreement and that no revenues would change hands until the fund was in place. So another pretty significant development. And we're what, 5-6 weeks into this presidency? The impact, you're still seeing all kinds of stories, by the way, coming in about Germany, about making Germany great again. This is from the New York Post. It says here, President Trump has a plan to save Europe, and the results of Sunday's election in Germany show it's working. I mean, Merz came out, as I've covered already this week, and he says, we've got to have a German reboot. We need German strength, militarily even, because we want to separate from the U.S. We don't want to be dependent on America anymore. I mean, these are stunning statements. And even this New York Post article, it's unbelievable. You never would have read something like this 5-10 years ago. It says here the center-right Christian Democrats won the most seats in the Bundestag, and the party's leader, Friedrich Merz, pledged that once he becomes chancellor, my absolute priority will be to strengthen Europe as quickly as possible so that step by step we can really achieve independence from the USA. Now, as I said yesterday or day before, I mean, Trump and his people, they're out there applauding this. They're cheering it on. Finally, we're making America great. Germany's going to make Germany great. Everybody's going to be great. And everyone's going to love America, right? Wrong. It says here the legislature's largest opposition party, the hard-right AfD, might not agree with Merz's support for Ukraine. It's often accused of favoring Russia, but it too wants Germany to have more military independence and will pressure Merz to live up to his words. They may not be part of the coalition, but the influence coming from the AfD, it's clear. Germany wants to rebuild its military. Germany wants to be a superpower again. They've been waiting for this moment. And now the whole world is completely fine with it. You're not hearing anyone sound the alarm, except the Trumpet website, the Trumpet magazine, the Key of David, this program. No one's even concerned at all. I mean, this piece, this is the New York Post. It says, far from destabilizing Germany and other states where voters are increasingly unhappy about economic conditions, more military spending will restore national cohesion, which prosperity alone is never enough to sustain. I mean, a stronger military will bring us all together. It'll unite Germany all the more. The truth is, nations are built on readiness to share in sacrifice, not prosperity. To the extent greater military preparedness regenerates patriotism, it will help restore social solidarity within Europe's nations. Is this what we want? Will this be good for Europe? Will this be good for America? Do we even know a little bit about history? When Germany militarizes itself, it's not good for the world. It never has been. It says here as well, military service can integrate citizens across class divides and regional differences. The American experience shows this. 80 years, listen to this. It's the New York Post. 80 years after World War II ended, Europe faces danger not from German militarism, but from an inadequate moral as well as material investment in defense. That's the real danger. That's the danger for Europe. It's if Germany doesn't militarize itself. I mean, they've got it exactly backwards. This was the whole point of establishing NATO after World War II, as I've noted this week. It was to keep America in. It was to keep Russia out. And it was to keep Germany down. Now America's out and Germany's rising. If you don't have this book actually, The Holy Roman Empire in Prophecy. You put this together with all the history that's discussed in this book. It's chilling. We're seeing prophecy being fulfilled. The New York Post, remember, that's a good conservative publication, right? I just want to read it to you again. Try to wrap your mind around this statement. 80 years after World War II ended, Europe faces danger, not from German militarism. No, certainly not. They're our ally. They're our lover. They just want to make peace. That's why they need a big military. Not from German militarism, but from an inadequate moral as well as material investment in defense. It's dangerous if Germany doesn't militarize itself. That's where we are. It's astonishing. It says here, Europe needs a renewed spirit of self-reliance, not necessarily as a replacement for NATO, but as the very thing that makes the alliance possible. And so there you have it. Among his many strong leadership abilities, Donald Trump is awakening Europe as well Donald Trump is awakening the beast. Donald Trump is awakening Germany. And Merz can win the Sunday elections and get right up and say, hey, we want to be strong so that we can be independent from the United States. The Wall Street Journal has a piece. The return of Europe's sleepwalkers. It says here the European Union named new leadership on Saturday, yet the latest EU summit in Brussels was just another beauty contest with layers of geopolitical cosmetics. After months of institutional paralysis, European leaders will find ways to rationalize why the EU is not ready to act. It says in the past year, national and European level elections and then the summer break have left the EU in an extended freeze. They just need a leader. They need a strong man. They need someone to rally around. They need a strong nation, strong economically and militarily, to rally around. Well, it's coming, and it's coming fast. It's coming fast. He was right. He was right. That's Herbert Armstrong that I'm referring to, the brochure here. He was right. I mean, this was his signature prophecy that Europe would be reawakened, that Germany would spearhead this seventh and final resurrection of the Holy Roman Empire. This is from Deutsche Welle. It says, Europe looks to Merz to reboot German power in crisis times. Europe is looking to Germany. Now, imagine how they're going to be looking to Germany when Germany gets the strongman, the prophesied strongman. Europe looks to Merz to reboot. It says from leaders elsewhere in Europe, the congratulations were almost immediately coupled with demands. Looking forward to working with you in this crucial moment of our shared security, said the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. It's vital that Europe step up on defense spending, and your leadership will be key. Everybody's urging them on. Everybody's encouraging them to militarize Europe, to be independent from the United States. Well, after all, it's Trump's fault, right? Look at this, just like the criticism over here the last 10 years. Well, look at his statement. Look at that tweet. Trump says one thing, and all of a sudden, America is the enemy. Well, he is, for his part. I mean, Donald Trump is reawakening Europe. There's no doubt about that. I hope that they do it as fast as possible, because we really need to move on with the decisions on the European level that require German participation. That's quoting from some European official. This last one that I have here, The Guardian. Germany can turbocharge Europe's renewal if it will only seize this moment. These are the words being used now, commonly. Turbocharge. 3 times in the post-war era, Germany made strategic choices that benefited Europe with the U.S. at its side. Now it must do it in opposition to Trump. Now we've got to do it because Trump. Now we've got to do it in opposition to him. Now we're going against the United States. Our commentators, are Trump's advisors listening to this rhetoric? These are not the words of a close, intimate ally. These are the words of aggression. We don't need the United States anymore. They don't want us. I mean, it's like the two are being divorced. And we're over here applauding it as if this is perfect. This is going to be great for the world. It says here, this time Germany has to build up a stronger, free, democratic, and Ukraine-supporting Europe against the current policy of the U.S. It's all to support Ukraine, as if America hasn't supported Ukraine. Has the United States, have they sent $350 billion to Putin, to Russia? There's nations like Germany, for example, that have empowered Putin because of energy deals Even Joe Obama, with energy skyrocketing during the fake presidency, that benefited Russia. It says here, the free Europe we have built since 1949 is therefore under attack from inside and out, and the two kinds of threat are intertwined. The threat from without, coming from America. It says here, the good news is that there's growing clarity across mainstream German and European liberal democratic parties about what needs to be done. Europe has to save Ukraine. We must rapidly build a much stronger common European defense, including Britain. Further on, it says here, today the wolves are actually there, two big ones at the door, Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. And then one small one, the AfD, already inside the hen coop. So you got Putin, you got Trump, and you got the AfD. Those are the big enemies that we're facing. This is The Guardian in the UK. Those are the big enemies of Europe. And we need to stand in opposition to, in this case, the United States. There's another story here about France being eager to support Germany in its quest for nuclear weapons. The Telegraph says, France offers nuclear shield to Europe. Fighter jets carrying nuclear weapons could be deployed to Germany as the U.S. threatens to withdraw its forces from the continent. How about this? I gave you the story the other day about Merz speaking in the UK about this very agreement, this kind of an agreement. A French official told the Telegraph that deploying fighter jets would send a message to Vladimir Putin, while diplomats in Berlin suggested it would pressure Keir Starmer to do the same. That's the UK Prime Minister. Posting a few French nuclear jet fighters in Germany should not be difficult and would send a strong message. It sure would. I agree with that. That is a strong message. Let's give Germany nukes. Let's give a newly militarized Germany nuclear weapons. And commentators can hardly bat an eye over this kind of a development. It's pretty amazing. When we come back, let's see. There's two different directions I can go. We'll see. We'll see what happens during the promo. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We'll be right back.
Daily news, Bible prophecy. See the connection on the Trumpet Daily. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the flood of news and information? You need something to sift the news and bring you only what matters most. You need the Trumpet Daily. You also need something to help you understand not just what's happening now, but what will happen next. You need the Trumpet Daily. Only the Trumpet Daily accurately matches daily news to precise Bible prophecies. Because Bible prophecy is the only tool up to the task of sifting the news down to what's important and showing you what will happen next. Join host Stephen Flurry every weekday. Go to trumpetdaily.com.
Hamas says it will hand over the bodies of 4 hostages on Thursday, including the 2 youngest people held by the Palestinian armed group. The group's negotiator, Khalil al-Hayya, said the bodies to be released would include those of the Bibas family, Shiri, and her young children, Kfir and Ariel, who were aged 9 months and 4 years when Hamas kidnapped them during the 7th of October 2023 attack. The dead bodies of this young mother and her 2 infant sons are to be returned. This is the horrific news we have been dreading since the very first hours of this trauma. This abomination more than 16 months ago. That's when we saw video footage filmed by the terrorists or the Gazan civilians supporting them as they took Shiri Bibas hostage, as they kidnapped her at gunpoint, along with little Kfir and Ariel, as she clung desperately to them. We don't show you that vision because the family in Israel finds it too distressing. There they were, alive and healthy, when taken by these monsters. Now they are dead. This has long been suspected. They may have been dead for over a year. However they died during this conflict, they are only dead because these evil terrorists kidnapped them.
That's from last week. I've had it in the stack for several programs. We just haven't been able to get around to it. But there's the Sky News commentator brought to tears over this tragedy. These monsters, these savages, having a big parade after killing a 4-year-old Jew, a 1-year-old Jew. They send the dead bodies back. Who knows how long they've been dead? They were alive when they were taken on October 7th, as was the mother. And all three of them murdered. A woman and 2 little children. And then Hamas, as you see there, celebrates. And these are the people the West is so eager to negotiate with. These are the people that the West, the United States-led West, is so eager to return terrorists to. Yeah, sure, we'll give you some of your soldiers back. Just give us the dead body of the 1-year-old. These people are monsters. So many of them are surely demon-possessed. Israel just narrowly missed another massive terrorist attack. This is, again, from several days ago, the Daily Mail. Israel avoided mass carnage after 3 empty buses exploded into fireballs on Thursday night, with officials warning the blazes could have been fatal, but detonators' timers had been set for the wrong time. It says here, a defense official has stated incendiary devices were accidentally set for 9 p.m. instead of 9 a.m. 9 a.m., you get rush hour, those buses are full. I mean, we could have seen another 200 people murdered. Narrowly avoiding more carnage. And then Israel has to receive these dead babies back. And we know about what Hamas did on October 7, even to little babies. The New York Post, it says here, Hamas's youngest hostages, Kfir and Ariel, and their mother are dead, and their bodies will be returned to Israel this week. This would have been last week. The terror group said in a ghoulish announcement Tuesday. It says here, Kfir and Ariel's father, Yardin, was released alive by Hamas earlier this month. In a statement, the Bibas family said it was aware of Hamas's claims. This is from the Jerusalem Post about this exchange, if you want to call it that, this deal. We have to gather up our courage and dedicate ourselves to eradicating the evil called Hamas, no matter what, or no matter how long it takes. These are monsters, and we've got to destroy them, or they will destroy us. Despite all the tears, trauma, and terror we have experienced over the last year and a half, though we knew that the terrorists were baby killers who had slaughtered and tortured countless children on October 7, we were not emotionally prepared for this. We knew they came in October 7 and killed babies. But then they have these 2 babies in captivity for a year and a half. And they return them dead, murdered. So the carnage continued. It wasn't just October 7. Their very names had given us hope. Hope that we would sing again of joy at their freedom. Hope that they would celebrate the bravery of these young lions who had descended into hell and emerged once again into the light. But it was not to be. There would be no mother and child reunion to give our nation the spiritual lift that we so desperately anticipated. There were a lot of people hopeful that they would return alive, but it was not to be. Not when you're dealing with Hamas. This is from Brendan O'Neill over at Spiked Online. They kidnapped a baby. A mob of anti-Semites stole a 9-month-old baby from his home. They filmed the abduction. So proud were they of their besieging of the innocent infant, they published the footage online for other Jew haters to salivate over. It showed the baby with his face buried into his mother's breast. Mom's face is etched with terror as she holds both her baby and her 4-year-old tight to her chest. A small and extraordinary act of maternal heroism in the face of swarming pogromists. It says, look what we did. The filmers of this crime essentially said, we humiliated a baby Jew. And people around the world, I'm sure, were cheering. There's a lot of Hamas supporters worldwide. We saw this following October 7. University campuses, streets of London. Yes, indeed. They love this kind of thing. We killed a baby Jew. The kidnapping of the Bibas family was one of the great war crimes of our age. The mother and her 2 sons, and you might remember from the news coverage last week that the body, the supposed mom, wasn't even the right body. They sent some other dead woman. These people are sick. How do you negotiate with them? How do you negotiate with tyrants, with dictators? You better be careful if you pride yourself in deal making. What we need is some wise counselors to help our leaders understand what we're dealing with, what we're going against, what Israel is facing. History will record this as one of the most unconscionable events of the early 21st century, I should say. All of it, the pogrom, the kidnapping of a family, the death of that family, the transformation of the handover of their bodies into an anti-Semitic stunt, another opportunity to hawk racist propaganda about the supposed bloodlust of this people. It says, if the world looks the other way today, if it fails to firmly condemn both the death of the Bibas family and the grotesque, racist pageant of the handover of their bodies, then we will know the true depth of our crisis of civilization. That's Brendan O'Neill at Spiked Online. And for the most part, I mean, did the world respond? I forget when this was, several days ago. Was there a worldwide outcry? It certainly hasn't been to the level of some of the outcries over Orange Hitler. Look at what he said about NATO. Look at what he said about paying your fair share. Here's the thing, it says, the world has already looked the other way. The crime against humanity visited on the Bibas family did not only expose the depthless cruelty of Hamas, it also exposed the moral disorder of the West. Moral disorder, upside down. What yesterday I talked about is the mindset of those that would want to get something for nothing, the way of get. You add to that this mindset, this moral disorder, people that just turn a blind eye to killing babies. Killing babies. Sam sent me a tweet or a link today. This black American, I guess he's American, I don't know, but he's killed something like like 14 people. He's a serial murderer. And you don't even hear about it because I assume because he's a minority. He's a black man. So let's just brush that aside. Hamas killing little babies, what's the big deal? Come on now. They have legitimate grievances. What is wrong with people? Melanie Phillips, she's had several pieces talking about Hamas and also President Trump's flawed attitude towards some of these monstrous world leaders. She says here, Trump's shocking and absurd claim that Ukraine started the war with Russia has caused consternation, even among many of those prepared to cut him slack, precisely because he's taking on the cultural nihilists of the left. A lot of people are willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Just because he's doing, as I said yesterday, he's doing quite a bit of good at home. It says that's because his remarks suggest that the monstrous reversal of aggressor and victim, an inversion at the heart of the Palestinian big lie, is not confined to the fantasy universe inhabited by the left. His embrace of the conspiracy theorizing that sanitizes Russian aggression is deeply alarming. She says, we don't know whether Trump will end up benefiting Russia's tyrannical president, Vladimir Putin, or producing peace with justice in Ukraine. But those looking to him to rescue America from the depredations of the left should not be blind to his flawed attitude to monstrous world leaders. Here again, this is the big weakness. We've talked about this on this show a time or two. We're blowing up Europe. I mean, in an empowering way, I mean. We're empowering Germany. It says here, his belief that in every conflict lies a potential deal to be negotiated in which he will emerge the victor. He really and truly does believe that every conflict can be ended through negotiation. Melanie Phillips says here, the United States, no less than Britain and Europe, has become riddled by systematic indoctrination in anti-Western propaganda, proclaiming its original sins of colonialism, racism, and white privilege, and where conservatives have been literally and metaphorically strong-armed off campus. She's talking about a sickness, a cultural sickness, a disease that goes, if we're to use the Bible language, it goes from head to toe. It's that thorough. And as I've said on this program, how do you heal that? How do you cure that? You can come in with some refreshing policies. You can reverse course in certain, points on the agenda. But how do you get rid of the sickness? Jesus said we need a physician. We need healing. We need our mindset to change. As I said earlier this week, I think it was yesterday, just in going through the Gospels, we've been focusing more on the Gospel of Mark, as I said yesterday, and it's just time and again, Christ makes these profound points. He teaches these valuable lessons. And again and again and again, he sees this horrible attitude in his own disciples. I made the point last week in class how that, Mr. Armstrong wrote in Mystery of the Ages about Israel, why Israel, and how that they had all of these benefits, these advantages. They were, outside influence was kept away. They had righteous leadership. They had God's laws. God revealed his truth to them, but they didn't have God's Spirit. And so Herbert Armstrong said in Mystery of the Ages that they were like the guinea pig. God was showing us that even when you have all of these advantages, and they did have them, Romans 3 even brings that out, Still, you need a miracle from God to bring on that complete and total transformation, for the human heart to transform into God's heart, to receive the divine nature from above. And I think it's, in a lot of ways, I think it's very similar to all the advantages that the disciples had during that 3.5-year ministry of Jesus Christ. Here they're following around the Son of God. They're receiving all this valuable instruction, this teaching, and yet they didn't yet have the Spirit of God. That would not come until Pentecost, after Christ's ministry ended. So for 3.5 years, I mean, there was a lot of carnality there. And it's not like they didn't have any of it when they received the Spirit, but they became different men when the Spirit of God combined with or joined together with their human spirit, and they took on the divine nature. And they started to think like God. They started overcoming and putting away that carnality. It's a remarkable transformation happening with just a few today, God's people, God's family, God's church. Soon to be, though, the whole world. I mean, look at how hard, how stubborn, how lawless the human heart is. Look at how lazy it is. Look at how selfish it is, as I covered yesterday. It takes a miracle from God to develop the kind of godly character that's described all through the Bible. We got to immerse ourselves into it, and then, like Romans 8 says, be led by the Holy Spirit to follow in the steps of Jesus Christ. I've taken you over by a minute here and there. Today I'm going to end just a couple minutes early. We've got a lot of packing to do to head off to the camp out. So these 2 extra minutes that we're not using, you can cancel that by the few times that I've taken you just a little bit over. You're listening to Stephen Fleury, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We appreciate you joining us on today's show. We'll have a couple of subs tomorrow and Friday, and I'll see you again on Monday.